Celebrity gossip is not a new phenomenon. Tabloids and rumor mills have always existed. What separates the online phenomenon is the frequency and volume of the content grifters are able to produce about a single individual, while the public is still interested. Public hatred has become an industry, seized upon by so-called news channels, armchair psychologists and so-called body language experts, all aiming to demolish every fiber of their target's life and character, removing their humanity in the process. There are entire channels dedicated to defaming and harassing one person who has fallen out of favor with the masses. Others, like Popcorn Planet, select a handful of targets they periodically harass for years, with the most ludicrous speculation, including but not limited to criminal accusations. Members of the same masses should stop and consider what it would be like if they themselves were ever microanalyzed 24/7 in this fashion, with the rapaciousness of a hungry pack of wolves. They wouldn't last a week. Popcorn Planet was created by Andy Signore, out of the ashes of his previous career at Screen Junkies, which had ended abruptly in 2017, amidst the disclosures of several women he had sexually harassed at work. It is commonly abbreviated as PCP, coincidentally the name of street drug angel dust, a strong hallucinogen. The irony is poetic, as Signore creates a false reality for his viewers, who end up emotionally intoxicated with his lies and distortions. The other option would have been PP, also suitable, but not chosen for obvious reasons. The channel banner features celebrities, alongside a murder victim and an accused multiple murderer, and Signore himself, his mouth gaping with amazement, eating popcorn. It shouldn't be necessary to explain how brutish and cruel it is to display serious crimes as a form of entertainment. It is in fact so vile that it's surprising people don't click off immediately. Perhaps we can reserve the acronym PP for his other monstrosity, Popcorn Palace, a channel dedicated to stalking Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. One has to wonder what the finality of this public hatred is. Does the audience plan on monitoring the couple forever, converting its daily frustration into hatred? Where is this even going, apart from the pockets of Pignor and his ilk? The evolution of Popcorn Planet was interesting. As the name suggests, the aim initially was to cover films, which Signore found less profitable down the line than celebrity scandals, such as divorce rumors, cheating and allegations of mistreatment. His angle in covering these stories is always one of weaponized misogyny and disbelieving women's allegations, especially of a sexual nature or domestic violence. Signore does this for personal reasons, as the more he invalidates the Me Too movement, the more he scrubs the stains from his own character. As a small note, the channel banner was recently updated, and the images of Gabby, as well as the person accused of murder, have been removed. However, these were present for years, as if there was nothing wrong with it. As mentioned, Signore's time at Screen Junkies, as well as his marriage, ended over his sexual harassment of multiple women, as well as extramarital sex. Some of the women were interns, while others were fans he was promising work opportunities to, in exchange for sleeping with him. One such fan, April Dawn, alleged that Signore had coerced her into such activities in a hotel room. While he later managed to whitewash his image before the public, an email remains, in which she makes this claim to him directly. Judging by his general treatment of women, it's very unlikely that things with her unfolded in the manner he described. While at Screen Junkies, Signore was known for his acrimony and belligerence, starting feuds which continue to this day. He was also known for passing other people's work as his own and not crediting them. In terms of how he spoke to people, he was, reportedly, the human equivalent of a back orifice. Although Signore did not deny the claims of sexual harassment at work, the public later embraced him as a victim of false allegations, allowing him to construct a large platform, of currently 762,000 subscribers. The allegations against him did not stop in 2017, as he has continued to engage in the same behavior with female moderators and fans. Since hatred is like a drug, people resist the idea of repudiating their supplier, namely Signore, for his professional and personal behavior. It's a curious case of having a blind spot. While these people gobble up his gossip and unsubstantiated claims about celebrities, they refuse to even look at the claims against him, of which there is ample evidence. In December of 2022, an article was published by NBC News, written by Kat Tenbarge, detailing the latest allegations of sexual misconduct, some having occurred as recently as 2021 and 2022. As mentioned, they are not mere allegations, as proof was provided. Signore, of course, rides the coattails of right-wing grifters, whose audiences dismiss the mainstream media altogether. This was portrayed as a personal attack, caused by his coverage of Johnny Depp's lawsuit. It's far more convenient for people to think there's a conspiracy against men, than to acknowledge the reality of domestic and legal abuse, or the abuse of power and sexual harassment, in Signore's case. A sanitized version of his unsolicited masturbation video, which he sent to women without consent, has been circulating online for 2 years. Texts also exist, showing how he had pestered a young mother for sex, offering her $1,000, as she was having financial difficulties. Signore wanted her to leave her baby for a few days and fly to his location, as his fiancée was going to be out of town, with no consideration for her, or her children, just to satisfy his whims. Signore later contracted a private investigator to scare her into silence, when other women were beginning to talk. He accused her of wanting to extort him, despite her having turned down his money to begin with. Several people have confirmed to have seen pornographic material sent to them by Signore, unsolicited, either of himself and his partner, or of women who didn't know their private material was being shared by him and would have strongly objected to that. Let's call him what he is. It starts with a P, ends with a G, and has an I in the middle. Oink. His audience, however, refuses to engage with this evidence, continuing to imbibe his moral outrage at other people's alleged behavior, while he himself is a selfish pervert with no boundaries and an incredible sense of entitlement. To channels like Popcorn Planet, public figures are consumables, with no right to privacy or dignity whatsoever. Any rumor can be given attention, if it makes for a clickable title. Signore will diligently dig into people's relationships and marriages, while he himself is a compulsive cheater, who is not above soliciting prostitution. If the public temporarily favors someone, like Britney Spears during her legal struggle to end her conservatorship, so does Signore, feigning compassion and decrying her mistreatment by the tabloid media. This is ironic, as he engages in the same behavior as the paparazzi. The dehumanization of Britney Spears is identical to what Signore does to other female celebrities, like Amber Heard and Meghan Markle. His stalking of Meghan Markle turned even more sinister when he took his employee, Steph, who seems equally sociopathic, on a trip to the area near Meghan and Harry's home. Going to someone's home, or implying that you will do so, simply because you don't like them, is legitimate stalker behavior and is disgusting. On the 7th of November of 2023, an article was published by Newsweek, detailing this unhinged excursion. Signore was quoted as follows. "Yeah, she's a human being, like a reptile. A reptile disguised as a human being, you know, those like conspiracy theorists that are like the Illuminati." End quote. The hypocrisy is monumental, as this excuse for a person justifies any level of harassment when it comes to others, while refusing to address his own behavior, which is far worse than what may be imputed to his targets. When it comes to him, although he labels himself as a public figure as well, his privacy is golden and should be respected. Signore is extremely sensitive to criticism, having the emotional equivalent of an allergic reaction. Meanwhile, he can degrade other people with no limit. Last year, he and his lapdog, Steph, organized a charity event based on the anniversary of the Depp versus Heard defamation trial. One of their stunts included preparing a drink with raw fish, based on a degrading remark Depp had made about his ex-wife, and drinking it to incentivize people to donate. Unfortunately, there is no indication that they got salmonella. Why is it so difficult for this man to understand that public figures need to guard their image and curate the narratives put out there about them and their families, just like he does? Doesn't he put himself out there daily, more often than many celebrities do, opening himself up to scrutiny? And yet he jumps as if bitten by a snake if someone mentions his private life. Why don't the same rules apply to him? In early 2022, the Oscars slap made the news around the world, although one couldn't find a more irrelevant first-world issue if they tried. The public focus was initially on Will Smith, who had carried out the slap. It soon turned towards his wife, Jada, who had, gasp, failed to laugh at a joke targeting her alopecia. She had even rolled her eyes, magically causing the assault. The online gossip mills were incensed for weeks, until Amber Heard took her place at the communal burning stake. Initially, Signore had no strong opinions, simply milking the moment. Upon realizing that his audience had an intense hatred of Jada, for unrelated reasons, he embarked on a daily smear campaign, tearing down every fiber of the woman's character. She was accused of controlling and abusing her husband, commanding him to assault Chris Rock with a glance, ruining his mental health and more. Towards the end, the fevered audience reckoned she had somehow planned the moment to ruin her husband's career out of jealousy. In other words, she was precognitive, or something. The slap was even blamed on Tupac Shakur, who had died 26 years prior. The cow Signore was milking was now on actual PCP. During this media circus, nothing the woman did was right. If she remained silent, she was endorsing violence committed on her behalf. If she disavowed the gesture, she was backstabbing her husband instead of supporting him. The hatred had to keep flowing, for its own sake. It became apparent that the public was ravenous and could not be appeased. That's exactly what people like Signore create and fuel in perpetuity. It's their bread and butter. According to the NBC article, Signore more than doubled his audience while covering the Depp versus Heard trial in Virginia. For months, he relentlessly mocked a victim of domestic abuse, vindicated in court in the UK. The kangaroo court of public opinion is an entirely different animal, influenced by online bots and smear campaigns on YouTube and TikTok. Similar obsessive grifter that umbrella guy, who made hundreds upon hundreds of videos defaming Amber Heard, boasted about paying off his mortgage during this time. The emerging backlash to the Me Too movement and the rise in far-right sentiments have greatly aided this grift. Men who no longer wanted their conduct to be questioned, and the women seeking to please them in a masochistic fashion, all denied that Johnny Depp's behavior had amounted to abuse. Attorney Ben Rottenborn put it best in his closing argument, which I will paraphrase from memory. If you didn't produce any pictures, the abuse didn't happen. If you did, they are fake. If you didn't tell your friends at the time, it didn't happen. If you did, they were in on the hoax. You get the point. There is no end to the mental gymnastics people are willing to engage in, to protect their own views. This gives grifters a license to hate and defame with no limits. Andy Signore's flirtation with doxing goes back to the time he threatened to dox fellow YouTuber Max the Mandalorian, after being pranked by a troll in his chat, pretending to be Max. Signore directly stated that he could reveal Max's identity, in order to get him to shut up. Fast forward a few years, when Handy Andy tried to organize a fundraiser to hire a private investigator. His target this time was not a public figure, but a simple Twitter user known as Camila, whose threads on the Depp versus Heard case had been very widely circulated. Targeting this anonymous Twitter user had been initiated by everyone's least favorite racist aunt, Laura B., who went as far as falsely claiming to have identified her. As Camila had a drawing of a black woman as an avatar, and Chrysanta White, an employee of the PR team working for Amber Heard, happened to be black, Laura B. saw fit to claim they were the same person. As coverage of the trial was so intense, Chrysanta White, a young woman who had nothing to do with it, planned to take legal action against Laura for the insane and unprovoked harassment she and her family had received. Andy Signore, seeing that the public was taking Laura B.'s unspeakable stupidity seriously, asked his audience for money, so he could identify Camila and publicly reveal her identity. Imagine being in this position for posting Twitter threads, or in Chrysanta's position, of becoming the target of a hate mob overnight, because of your skin color. These people are unbelievable, and anyone who took part, not realizing how ridiculous this all was, should be ashamed. Let me remind you again that when it comes to his own privacy, Andy Signore is indignant, claiming no one should intrude on it. In terms of his sex pest behavior, he refers to it as having a human moment, as quoted by NBC. He has no such regard for any other person, celebrity or not. In fact, he held a viewing party for private security footage showing Amber Heard kissing someone in an elevator. As mentioned in a previous video, to adapt a famous Orwell quote, "Some human moments are more equal than others." Like any person with narcissistic traits, Signore always laments how busy he is. How much work he does, how much he provides to the public and how little he is rewarded for it. But does he really? Several former moderators for Popcorn Planet, among them Simply Bell, have described him as a slacker, who relies on unpaid work to run his channel. His inner circle of moderators finds stories for him to choose from, writes those god-awful titles and even finds the articles and images he uses. They are all handed to him on a silver platter, for him to profit from. He then runs his mouth for a couple of hours on stream, giving his opinions. That's it. The work done for him is not publicly acknowledged, since he is the one getting paid, and is presumed to be more involved with his own content. While he is so dependent on his moderators, he treats them with contempt, letting them know the time and work they provide is actually a privilege. If they distance themselves from the channel or interact with people he has conflicts with, he smears them publicly, as was the case with a fellow named Paul. In other words, this gossip monger thinks he is owed unflinching loyalty and obedience, not to mention free services. His one employee, Steph, supports his smear campaigns and does PR for him, by discrediting the stories of women he sexually harasses. She even referred to one of them, the unfortunate recipient of his masturbation video, as a homewrecker for having flirted with him previously, as if he had no control over himself. In his typical narcissistic style, Signore often treats her with contempt as well. Steph was appropriately nicknamed by content creator Saggy Melons as the Creeper Keeper, since she hides his dirty secrets. As a victim of abuse herself, Steph provides a shield for him, image-wise, claiming she would not interact with a man of low character, who mistreated women. In reality, she is just as much of a grifter, her channel now dedicated exclusively to stalking and harassing Meghan and Harry. She's been at this since 2022. Imagine for a second that this was some unfortunate ordinary couple living across the street from her, under constant observation, with daily videos released on what she imagines is their character. How would that look? Doing this to a celebrity couple is no less unhinged. They are still people, permitted to have slip-ups and imperfections. This is downright obsessive. As you can see in these screenshots from Signore's link tree, there are 7 separate ways to give him money. He has channel subscriptions, a Patreon, an Amazon wish list, ways to donate live, a Cash App, a PayPal and a sponsor. This does not include the occasional GoFundMe for personal projects, trips or whims. One time he had his audience pay for his new studio. Another time, a trip to Las Vegas with his lap dogs, to see Johnny Depp in concert. Last year he was seen asking fans for a free ticket to see Taylor Swift as well. I will repeat that there is no value in what he does. It's actually in the negative. He sees his audience as an endless money pit. All he has to do is extend his slimy fingers. If Andy Signore ran a channel based on science experiments, testing products, or what have you, an audience might find value in it, separately from his personal conduct. The cherry on top is that this man makes money by discussing other people's bad behavior. The fact that words like cheating, bullying, emotional abuse, sexual harassment and smear campaign leave Andy Signore's mouth, in relation to other people, is not acceptable. Minus the people he attracted by supporting good causes, his audience must consist of rather unintelligent gossip consumers. It's impossible to operate in good faith on this planet and unironically consume the rubbish Signore puts out, rewarding him for the privilege. It's no wonder that they didn't care about the latest group of women describing his sexual harassment. What drives him is evident. He even lost a top-tier donor after propositioning his partner, which means the sex pest behavior is an even stronger drive for him than greed. If you're ever tempted to give him money, please remember he offered a woman $1,000 to prostitute herself, as he shared her intimate material with others without consent. He has in fact done this to many women, keeping folders of their images for his personal use. In terms of hypocrisy, he went as far as impugning comedian Louis C.K. for using his subordinates in a sexual manner, while at the very same time engaging in identical acts with women in his community, who relied on his approval. The words power dynamics left his mouth in this specific context. He truly has no shame. Thank you for watching and please keep your mind safe out there, lest you become intoxicated on PCP as well.